Welcome to the podcast, Everything That's Weird. We are your hosts, Anthony and Brandon, and tonight we are talking about UAP disclosure by the U.S. government, unidentified aerial phenomenon, and what that means. Is it real?
Or is it just Tic Tacs in the sky?
Yes. So listen, before we even get started, this whole thing, so me and you grew up in a very unique time. We grew up when we used to be able to drive to parties, and we wouldn't find those parties. We would get lost because there was no GPS. And we didn't have cell phones to call people. And Monday morning would come around and we'd be like, what happened to you on Saturday? And you'd be like, I got lost. And that was an excuse.
Yeah. Why are you calling? No payphone.
No payphone, bro. I don't have a pager. I can't afford a pager. I can't afford $17 a month. What are you, Rockefeller? So this idea that the government is like, hey, okay, there's UFOs, is crazy to me and you.
Yeah, it's bananas.
It's bananas because it's as crazy to me and you as the government saying you can smoke pot.
Right.
Go ahead.
Right.
Because that was a drug. That was like crack cocaine.
Yeah, we had to go to their meetings for it and everything.
Yeah, right? So you have to forgive
Watch
us.
the cops brag about the cool cars they confiscated.
Yeah, right, which is theft.
Dicks.
But whatever.
Yeah, it's just stealing, whatever.
But fine,
He's like,
you stole the car.
If you joined the DARE program, you could touch my Corvette.
That I stole from another guy.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, like, our government it's almost like they've evolved with us. Right. Not so much the baby boomers and not so much like the millennials or Gen Ys or people like that were after us. But it was almost like the government has been paying attention to our age group. And the reason I say that is because you don't hear a lot about Gen Xers. Like, we don't bitch.
Yeah, right.
We don't complain. We're not boomers. We're not millennials. Nobody ever is like, you know what? Fuck Gen Xers.
Yeah.
You know why? Because we're fucking working.
Because we'll knock you the fuck out.
That too. Right. We're like the only group of people that aren't racist. Yeah. Don't really fucking care what you are. We're really cool. Like, honestly, our group of people are cool motherfuckers. We just are. We really are. As far as the cross section of our population goes, our age group is probably the most tolerable, coolest, and the most hardworking of all the fucking generations that are alive right now.
Right.
And it's
but
because
we knew what life was like without and with. So, like, you know,
exactly.
There's all these things that we didn't have, but now we have them, and we're gonna appreciate not having them. So,
and the millennials only know what it was like to have it with, and the boomers only know what it was like to have it without. And then, you know, by the time they had to deal with it with, they were on their way out of their jobs. You know what I mean?
and they even now they're like, technology, and it's funny for them. It's kitschy and cool to say that shit. So they purposely avoid technology for the right to say it.
But they all have a Facebook account.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? And we're the ones that are like, fuck Facebook, man. That's so invasive.
Yeah.
We're the coolest. I believe that we, like, our generation, really, I do believe this.
Oh, it's easy to tell because if you look at, like, all the people that get in trouble because of what they posted online, and it's like, well,
it's none of it's us.
There's like, well, that was fucking stupid. You put it out there for everybody to see. What do you think was going to happen?
Right. Exactly.
We were leery of it when it first came out. What do you mean the internet? What do you mean all the information?
So I think the government was like, okay, there's some stuff going on. And the Gen Xers, like, the millennials already think there's aliens. And, you know, the boomers are like, there aren't aliens. Because I remember having this conversation with my dad. He's like, there's not aliens. There's no aliens. Don't you think, like, that would be the biggest conspiracy for them to, like, hold close? And you know, that did, growing up, I'm like, yeah, that's true. Like, that did ring true to me. Like, well, I mean, you know, why would they hide? Like, so many people would have to lie, I guess. And then, it's not that I didn't think that there were aliens, but, like, later, I'm like, well, you know, you get to the math of it, right? There's so many fucking planets and there's so many stars.
Well, that's what changed it all. I mean, I think that's what made it possible, was that we started putting these telescopes out that could see out into space, and then you get the Hubble that was looking out in one spot, just the tiniest section of space, and it saw all these galaxies. And
but then
like,
there's
other galaxies,
and our generation's like, hey man, maybe Roswell was real, you know? Maybe people like Bob Lazar are like real people, you know? Like, maybe there's technology out there we don't know about.
I know. And it's funny, when they were the ones that were like, we're gonna rush Area 51, and we were like, good luck with that.
I know. Literally.
We're cheering for you.
I literally wrote on Facebook on that the Area 51. It was Rush Area 51. Yeah. I'm like, okay, fine, you get everything. You have 15 miles to run
in the desert.
In the desert before you even see a UFO. Like, if you say you believe Bob Lazar, did you not hear his story? He said you have to drive in a bus for 15 miles before you even get to the hangar. So, and like,
go into a mountain.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, like, I think our generation was like, probably, but it's far-fetched because we had our parents, and then, you know, you get the people younger than us, and you're like, you're stupid, man. They're not everywhere. Yeah. and then this happened. So there was a Navy fighter pilot. His name was David, and I don't know if I'm saying this right, Favor. But he was part of, like, so he was part of that Top Gun program. Yeah. And he was part of
volleyball and stuff. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. Somebody wrote 20 years ago, this is a while ago on Facebook, they're like, 20 years ago, Top Gun came out. And I was like, also what happened is the most spontaneous homoerotic game of shirtless volleyball happened. But anyway, this guy was part of the Black Aces, and it was a F-18 squadron, and I'm not going to act like I know what that is, but they're like jets, and they're fighter jets. These guys are like for real pilots. They're like our best, right? And he is sent out, and this is like 2004, that he is sent out, and while they're out on this run, they spot something, and it's referred to as the Tic Tac UFO. Okay, but they don't really call them UFOs anymore. They call them UAPs.
Yep.
Okay, so they spot it, and they have that locking
and that has to do with sensors, radar, things like that. Flocks of birds can cause a radar blip. So they leave it open as to it's not an identified flying object. It could just be an object like a cloud or something that's not a propelled, or, you know,
right,
or moisture in the air. It could be something else that showed
exactly.
up.
Exactly.
So they went with the UAP so they could get a little broader scope.
Right. You're correct. So it's not just
unidentified flying object. It could be.
It could be a number of things that they could classify in a bunch of different ways. So he's up there, and they spot this thing, and the way it's traveling, for their knowledge, is baffling. So he literally is like, dude, do you see that? To his co-pilot.
Right.
Like that's how they're talking to each other.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you see that?
Yeah.
And he's like, what? He's like, right there. He's like, what the hell is that thing? Right?
Yeah, it's real official.
And this thing, right, exactly. Military jargon. So they're like, it's flying with them. And he's like, I have no idea what that thing is, right? So they try to maneuver towards it. And it sort of mirrors their actions. So they like bank towards it. It like goes out of view, comes back. It's like dicking with them, basically. Right? And he's like, what the hell is that thing? And it's dropping and accelerating, and it's moving 20,000 to 30,000 feet at a time. And he's like, what the hell is that? So they finally like get to a point where they're like kind of on top of it, and he's trying to fucking nail it like Top Gun.
Yeah.
He's trying to fucking flip
upside down and take a Polaroid of him flipping it off.
Exactly. He's trying to like lock in on it.
Yeah.
And they're like, get it. And he's like, fucking gets. He's like, yeah, got it. So they're like, him and this guy are playing cowboy in the sky, basically. They are with like a $500 million airplane, and they're just like, but they do lock in on it, and they're like, yeah, fucking got it, dude, I got it. And they like track it, whatever, and it does these like crazy maneuvers. And that's kind of it. And then that was 2004. Well, back to our generation. So when it comes to politics, polls are a big deal. So they're constantly polling people. They're constantly, right? And they hit them with like social issues and whatever.
Right. I have no clue who these people are, but
but they're pretty accurate. They really are accurate. And like you can say whatever about the polls, but like they'll take a cross section, and what they found was that our age group just flat out did not believe. It was a crazy amount. It was like 5%. Believed that what the government was telling them about UFOs was real. that there was nothing there, and that we had no evidence. But we were like, even the millennials, our age group was like, yeah, they're fucking lying to us. Yeah. We know they're lying to us. Yeah. I mean, fine, do your thing, whatever, lie to us.
I think that was our default setting, though.
Yeah, because we know the government lies.
Like, ask them about anything. Like, yeah, they lied.
Yeah, our age group, we just firmly believe the government's lying to us.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, we should release something. So they kind of started with Bill Clinton, and they went a little bit with George Bush, and then, a little bit with Hillary Clinton. She was on Conan O'Brien, and he's like, okay, are there aliens?
Yeah.
And she's like, what do you mean? Yeah. Of course there's aliens. There's millions of planets and solar systems, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, they came to Earth. And she's like, I don't know, Conan. And he's like, well, you can't tell me if there's UFOs. And she's like, well, we don't call them that. We call them UAPs. So that set off this whole other thing where, like, there's a FOIA, which is Freedom of Information Act, where, like, okay, if you're searching government documents that they have to, by law, upload, right, to a public database, and you're looking for UFO, you're not going to find it. Because they don't call them that. They call them UAPs.
Yep.
Okay, so that was like, okay, now there's UAPs. But then COVID hits, and they're like, there's like this spending bill, and Trump, like him or not, puts this like caveat into the bill that says, you have to tell us. You have to tell us. You have to tell us what you have. You have to tell us if there's technology that we don't know about, and if it comes from otherworldly places. So the very first thing they show us is Tic Tac UFO.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, okay, that was 2004. So we're talking 15 years later, 16 years later. And, you know, this is just now being brought out. Okay.
Right. I remember, and I could be wrong here, but I want to say maybe it was Obama. One of the first things he did when he got into office was like, okay, where's the big book that says there's aliens and stuff? You know, where's the report on all the aliens? I think it was Obama that asked for the alien report right away. I could be wrong, but I thought it was him that said it on one of an interview or a talk show or something. It's pretty funny.
Clinton and Bush were asked the same exact the question. And they were both like, well, Clinton said, I asked. And they said,
I remember him doing that too. Yeah, I asked.
And I remember Bush saying, well, you know, that's like a matter of national security. And, like, you know, I'm not allowed to, like, say what there is. But, you know, we're always protecting the United States. They have this, like, party
now,
line.
maybe it was Bill Clinton that was the one that said it. Now that you're talking about that, that sounds familiar. I remember him saying that. Like, I asked.
Bill Clinton.
You know?
And
he was the one that asked right away. Now, I think what Obama did was he was playing coy, like he knew something and he wasn't going to say, you know, which is even funnier.
Right.
But yeah, I remember it's like, how could you not, you know, if you become president?
That'd be the first thing I would do.
First thing out of my mouth. All right, where's the fucking aliens at, man?
So the question is, why is there disclosure right now? Is the disclosure real?
Yep.
And what does that mean?
What does that mean to American citizens and then the population of the world?
Humanity, period.
There's two looks at it, you know.
Agreed. So let's look into that. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. Second, there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Okay, so now we have the United States government. They'd say there are these things called UAPs. We know them as UFOs.
Right.
We want to say they're aliens, but now they won't commit to say that there are aliens. Okay.
Right.
Fine. So one of the first initial things I read when this came out, and I remember saying this, to I have a fantasy football text chain. All my buddies in California, and they're like, so we talk a lot of football during the season, but after the season, we just kind of throw memes at each other and talk shit, right? Yeah, it's because we all have families, we don't have time, but like it's like the one group of friends we have, right? So we'll be like throw something back and forth, and I remember somebody saying, yeah, fucking mask mandates and all this fucking quarantine. There's fucking aliens.
Right.
Why are we not talking about there are fucking aliens? And I'm like, yeah, right? It's almost like they like slid it in on us.
Yeah. When we weren't looking.
We weren't looking. But like I did not pay attention to that. I've been saying it from the beginning.
Right.
I said, dude, they're saying there's aliens. I'm like,
I know.
They're
like,
saying,
to your point, it was only the Gen Xers that perked up when they did it. They were
right.
Like, wait, go back. You can't just gloss over that.
My mother-in-law was like, I've never heard that. I'm like,
and everybody else.
It's on Fox News. Yeah. I'm like, we're watching Fox News, like the most conservative news that there is. They're talking that there's an unidentified aerial phenomenon, and
it was the first time that all the news outlets were saying the same thing
ever. And you know what they said? The follow-up was either these are otherworldly phenomenon, or China and Russia are 5 to 1,000 years ahead of us.
Right.
So, like, they're not. And here's why they're not. If you ever look at a graph of defense spending, the United States, hold your hands out as wide as your shoulders. They spend that much. Take your thumb and your index finger and hold them 2 inches apart. The next closest person is that.
Right. And a lot of those had their governments got taken over and changed and turned around, like both China and Russia. I mean,
we spend more on defense and R&D than any empire in the history of the world. Mm-hmm. That includes the Egyptians, the Spartans, the Romans, before they were Iran,
right.
Xerxes,
Persia,
Persia, right? The Ottomans, Genghis Khan. That all those people have a bullshit defense budget compared to the United States.
Right.
Our defense budget is ridiculous. So that's why I kind of don't believe that somebody came up with the technology before us. Now, I will say this. We stole a shitload of technology.
Yeah, everybody does it, but yeah.
Yeah, but after World War II, we stole all the technology.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have said that the Germans had a bell. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, say what you want about the Nazis, but they made cool shit.
Great uniforms.
They
had good looking,
super tight.
Good looking uniforms. All black. Red
Jesus,
trim.
We're canceled tomorrow.
I know. Here, I'll cover it. Terrible politics. Terrible politics.
Terrible politics.
Great uniforms, terrible politics. But no, seriously. So, but they really did have good engineering. And
yes, they did.
So I don't know if you've ever owned a German car, but I only buy German cars, and I'm not like a snob. Here's why. They last forever.
They make them. Everybody in Europe buys German.
You have to kill that car. If you don't kill that car, it won't just die. Like an Astra van will die. Like a Chevy Lumina will die. Like a 300 turbo diesel Mercedes will not die. You have to wreck it or it will not die. So like their engineering is very clever. Like when lights go out in the car, literally there's a quarter turn plastic like nut. You turn it, the entire panel comes off, and you're holding basically all of your back lights in one panel. And they have a quarter turn light that you fucking turn off, take it off, put a new one in, put it back in, quarter turn. It's the easiest fix. Okay, I had a Porsche 924. It had a spare tire that bent. So if you can imagine the walls of the tire bent in half, you could drive on that tire 40 miles an hour, no air. You get to the gas station, you pump it up, you could drive 65 miles an hour on the pumped up tire. Same tire, no air, because it bends inside of itself. So there are engineering differences between Americans and Germans, and we definitely took advantage of that after World War II. Manhattan Project, jet.
Shout out to our German listeners.
Yeah, right. Jet propulsion. Like the X-Wing fighter was like a thing.
Yeah.
Like the stealth fighter is, you say what you want, it is a design of a German jet in World War II. There are all these technologies that, existed because of the Germans in World War II. But this is not what we're talking about.
No.
This is like Bob Lazar talked about. This is like what John Lear talked about.
Right.
And who are you telling me? Stephen Greer, right?
Yes, Dr. Stephen Greer, yeah. And he was the one that in 2001 he held a conference at the National Press Club, and it was all these former aerospace and military intelligence. They were all whistleblowers. He got a big panel together, and these guys told some of these stories they were telling were just crazy, but these are former military and aerospace engineers. So there was one in particular, Carol Rosin, that was there at that 2001 press conference. She worked alongside Werner von Braun.
Right.
Just like you were saying, he was one of those after the war guys.
Right.
They
got picked
not the
up
defector. He was the after the war guy.
So the Soviet Union picked up a bunch of those guys too.
Yeah.
And they helped propel their defense industry also.
Right.
So yeah, man. I mean, fine. It's not to say that we didn't have knowledge. We did have knowledge. We did have knowledge of how things worked because we split an atom. But we didn't have capability because we couldn't do certain things that these vehicles or UAPs or UFOs or whatever you want to call them could do. Like this, we had no capability of what this Tic Tac could do. So Bob Lazar comes out, he says hey man, they have technology that this thing just floats in the air and it can make all these movements. And he's his biggest beef is that you can end world hunger. The whole idea of how the world works.
Yeah, energy, everything, yeah.
And I remember you saying in the Bob Lazar episode, you said, well, this may be you have that technology, I want it. Okay. But if you don't understand how the technology works, what do you do with it?
All right. It's in a garage.
It's in a garage. And that's what Bob Lazar said. We should have shitloads of scientists trying to figure this out, but they're so concerned about losing control that they don't want to do that. They don't want to have Elon Musk and Zuckerberg, and I don't even know if Zuckerberg can handle this, but they don't want to have the best minds that we have going and looking at something like this, because it's like, what good is that? Because they can't, maybe Elon Musk gets an idea and starts his own company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's no trillionaires. There's only billionaires. And that's coming to an end, but then there'll be quadrillionaires.
Yeah.
So, it's...
Out of all those people, though, I out of that group, there's the 1%. I have the most faith in Elon Musk.
They're scared of him.
He's going to use his money to do the right thing. I think he'd give it all up in a heartbeat if he knew he could.
Dude, he has a company called the Boring Company. That's a drilling company.
yeah.
Which is a great name, by the way. But they don't want to give that guy him. He can't have the control.
Yeah.
You can't have somebody like
that. He'd
that.
open source it.
So just to put it in perspective, Henry Ford, he tried to work with the U.S. government on just, cars and whatever, and that didn't work out. There's been many industrialists.
We can know everything about you, but you can't know everything about us.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So the Rockefellers, they made all the steel. But when it came to building the war machine, yeah, they made a shitload of money. They got all the steel. But okay, they weren't allowed to have their own tank factory.
Yeah.
They weren't allowed to make their own money. So it's they eventually formed the Federal Reserve, but that's a group of people, and they the United States had to okay, and they're never gonna let somebody with that much influence take over, because you really could take over the country. You could be king.
Yeah. Now, to what your buddy was saying, recently with them saying, "Hey, man, UFOs exist." That's from that report last year. They dropped a 9-page report where they documented 144 reported UAP, and they could only identify one of the 144 in this report. Right. And guess what? It was a fucking balloon.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, guy, just lie,
Right.
Don't tell me it's a balloon. That doesn't sound. But anyway, they got 144 of them. They said that these were the ones that they had more than that. We had all these reports, and we whittled it down to these 144 that were these were we could identify them as an object, so they fell out of that UAP category and into the direct unidentified flying object. But they said that it was 80 of those reports from multiple sensors. So it wasn't just a pilot saw something,
right?
In 80 of those. And then 11 of those cases, the pilots reported near misses where they almost collided with this object.
Right.
So it was a pretty it was pretty crazy that they were divulging all this stuff, and everybody was just kind of not really paying attention to it. They were just yeah. And I don't know if some of it was just people were yeah, we already know. Move on. It felt like one of the here. This is what it felt like to me. I remember I was, where we live, we don't see a lot of bald eagles, but recently there's been more and more bald eagles and people, stuff like that. And it's still, I'm a bit, like I said, I'm a bit of a birder. So I'm not the work that's got to get out and look. And me and my buddies we were out walking, and I see a bald eagle, and it's kind of rare to see them. So I was like, hey, look, guys, bald eagle. And they were walking in front of me, and they only half of them even looked up. There was 6 of us out there. 3 of them looked up.
Because we know how ridiculous it is to have bald eagles where we live.
Well, they just kind of blew it off because they were like, yeah, they're everywhere now.
Right.
And I was like, you guys got over bald eagles that quick, huh? But because I was like, look, guys, bald eagle. And he's like, and the one that didn't even look up, he was like, yeah, they're everywhere now. And I felt like that's what this was like when they were like, hey, here's these UFOs, and everybody's like, yeah, we know.
Mm-hmm.
They're everywhere. We know that.
That's exactly what I
don't care.
That's exactly what it was. It was like the older generation was like, probably. And the younger generation is like, yeah, we always knew. And we're like, well, then why the fuck did you lie to us? You know what I mean?
Wait, we want answers, motherfucker.
Exactly.
This report is from 2005.
So, like, the Phoenix lights were like a big one, right? Yeah. So they tried to blow it off as like flares, but in actuality, there was like this giant craft that went from it was like somewhere in New Mexico over Phoenix in Arizona.
Yeah.
Like it had a flight path.
Yeah, and you can look it up. There's lots of videos on it. Yeah.
And that mayor was like all about it, right? And then he all of a sudden he's like involved in some scandal.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that day that he's supposed to get like indicted, he brings out this, he's like, I wanted to talk about the Phoenix lights. And he's like, I have an expert that's going to tell us. And he brings out this guy dressed in like an alien like outfit, like a costume.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I brought my friend here and he's going to tell us all about it. And everybody like laughs and whatever. And then mysteriously, all his fucking charges get like dismissed.
Mm.
And I'm not saying that's why it happened. I'm just saying, to this day, he's like, yeah, that was something. Something flew over because it's past the statute of limitations for what he can get in trouble for. He's like, yeah, something flew over Phoenix and everybody saw it. And you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's where it is. It's like, okay, now there's like proof and the government is saying there's proof. We've had whistleblowers say there's proof. We've had elected officials.
Well, then you
say,
there's a Representative Jim Himes at a House Intelligence Committee said, that because this alludes to the whole thinking that it could be foreign technology,
right?
And so he's saying like, we got to be careful about what we say because we don't want to say we know this or we don't know that if it is simply just a foreign technology from a China or a Russia or one of the third worlds that dumps all their money in the military.
But it's right.
So,
Right. So the question is, so this happened, the Tic Tac happened. So there's tangible proof, at least of one thing that was tangible proof. What the fuck is that thing? Right. Yeah. So then there's all the questions of what is it? Right. And so now we're going to talk about, what do you think? So Let's go there. All right. You want me to do mine first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so mine's dark. And I'm really when it comes to like stuff like this, I'm a dark person. It's because I read a book about John F. Kennedy, and he said to Nikita Khrushchev, he said, if we go to war and we use nuclear weapons, 60 to 100 million people are going to die. And Nikita Khrushchev just like looked at him like, yeah, and and John F. Kennedy was like, oh shit, there is like a huge difference between the way we think about diplomacy and the way other countries think about diplomacy. So like a big part of me is like, there's two things. Either we harness all this technology and we're being cool about it, or other people have this technology and we're scared to death that they have this technology.
Yeah.
So I kind of lean towards the second part where we know we have it.
Yeah.
And if we have it, well, why didn't it fall in the fucking desert? Or why didn't it fall in Siberia?
Yeah.
Why is it not in Germany? You know, there's like the Kecklenburg. Why is it not there in England? Why is it not in Africa, like Zimbabwe? Why is it not in Antarctica?
Yeah, they could all got their hands on it.
How come maybe everybody has it? And this is our like, so, okay, the most money I've ever won in poker, right? I lost. And that might sound crazy, but I was at a poker room in California and they had a progressive, it was a Royal Flush progressive, right? And I was broke. And in California, that's how it is. Like, you make fuck tons of money and then you're broke and then, you know, whatever. So this particular time, my roommate's like, you want to play some poker? And I was like, dude, I literally have like $80. And he's like, okay, you want to go play some poker? I'm like, yeah, why not? So we go to the card room and it was Hollywood Park, right? So we sit down, I'm playing, check, fold, check, fold. But you still have to play big blind, little blind, right?
Yeah.
So I'm still like bleeding through money, right? It's $80. And it flops up Jack, Queen, King, Hearts. And everybody, so the progressive it was like $100,000 Royal Flush, right? But everybody at the table got paid $4,000, or it was like $2,500, and then the guy with the highest hand got paid $4,000 if you stayed in. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we all look at each other because you're not allowed to talk. Right? So we all look at each other, and this guy is just like, he takes his hand and he puts this whole fucking stack in. And I had, you know, at this time I had $30, right? And I'm like all in, right? Right? And I had like 6'5" or something stupid, like all way off. Right?
Give me a drink, doll, and
I'm
slap
like,
some fucking waitress on the ass.
So as soon as I did it, because I was the first, I did it. Because I could tell the way he did it. He's like, I got it. He fucking had it. He had it off the bat. And I'm like, as soon as he did it, he just took his hand, just fucking waved all his chips in. And I'm like, yeah, fucking all in, right? And this guy who's been seeing me like check, bet, like check, fold the entire time, he's like, all in. And then the guy watching him was like, all in. And this other guy wasn't even paying attention. He's like, everybody's all in? Why are we all? Oh, shit. He goes all in. And we're like, do you fucking have it? He's like, I got it. We're like, yes. And he fucking flops it. We're like, get the fuck out of here. And they come over and they fucking blow the whistle and fucking ding, ding, ding. And they fucking paid us out. And it was unbelievable because, like, I had no money.
Jesus.
And I went with, like, $80 and I lost and made money. It was unbelievable. And I tell that story all the time because when you play poker in a casino, there's always a progressive for the royal flush. And I've had 2 royal flushes in my life. And they're like, it's a 1 in 288,000 chance that you get one, right? Mm-hmm. And I actually had 2 in 1 month. And I always tell people, like, you know what the odds of that are? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, it's the same odds. Because, like, you can get a royal flush on every hand. But I kind of think that's what the United States government did with this. They were like, all right, look, I got it. I got it. Who else has it?
Yeah.
Who else has the royal flush? Who else has this? We already have. We captured. We like that Tic Tac. Yeah, we caught it on video. We have it. We're flying it. So what do you have? I really think that's what we did. And I don't know what came of that, but what I can say is the way it's going with wars, I don't think anyone thinks they can take over a country now. Because, yeah, there's the Ukraine thing that's happening, but that's really inside of Russia. There's like minor skirmishes with like here and there, but like real wars, like I don't think it exists anymore. And I may be naive, but it's because these big governments.
Twinkle in your eye when you say that.
No, it's more. It's. God damn it, dude! I hate to say this. It's more disappointing than that. It's more like we know that there's something else out there, and why would you fight somebody else for lesser technology?
Yeah, I guess.
So that's like my feeling is like the United States spends so much fucking money on defense, and you know, you could say Bob Lazar, yeah, and he even said like, why is it me? Why am I the one doing this? We should have teams of fucking scientists out here, and you know, and in other
so
countries.
you think you're saying that the aliens technology exists, that
we don't know what to do with it. It's way beyond our comprehension.
All of us might have a little bit here and there. On the big power players might have some piece of technology,
and it's so beyond our comprehension that we don't know what to do.
Got dust on it, and it's got a tarp over it.
Yeah, and even if they are constantly working on it, they still don't know. Like he made the analogy of the motorcycle in the mid ages. That's an elementary like explanation. What if you're like Stone Age.
Okay, so what's the
and you see a motorcycle.
So your reasoning behind the recent disclosure is that they're showing their hand.
It's just exactly like that guy that fucking went all in at the poker table, because he's like, he was giving us a solid.
He was saying, "I got this."
He was like,
he's like, "Stay in the round." He was telling you guys to win.
We're all gonna win.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the first one that picked up on it. And I'm like, yeah, all in, because I had $30.
Yeah.
And like I was gonna win $3,000. So like $30, who fucking like, even when you're broke, who cares about $30, right? When it flopped, like the first thing that goes, okay, so if you play poker,
I don't.
When you get good, I'm
not good.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you, I wasn't good, and then I started playing. The second I got good was when I started putting math to it. When you start putting math to something, you're like, okay, hold on. He has a 17% chance of having a royal flush, and if he's going all in, and I have $30, he's not trying to squeeze me out. Mm-hmm. And then I look around the table. He's obviously winning, man.
Yeah.
He there was one guy had maybe $300. What's he gonna steal his $300? He's got this guy had thousands of dollars, and we're on a table that had a cap of like a $40 entry. So this guy already had thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
All right, he was giving us a solid.
Yeah.
And he did it. I remember he just took his arm and fucking waved the whole fucking stack in front of him. He's like, all in. And I'm like, and I looked, I'm like, he fucking got it. And I looked at and what's crazy is I went to Ohio and I had to get my hair cut. And the girl that cuts my hair is in Indiana. And I went to Aurora. And when I came back, I had that itch to gamble. And so I'm like, so I went to the casino. I went to the poker room. They're like, you gotta wait. And I'm like, yeah, fine, whatever. So I'm waiting for 5, 10, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I'm like, fuck. Do you got a table for me or not? I don't care this much. He's like, no. You can go here. It's a $50 minimum. I'm like, that's fine, whatever. I was like, I would spend $200, in my head. I'm like, fine. I'm like, just give me $200 in chips, whatever. And literally, the first fucking flop, I flop Jack, Queen, King, Ace of, or I have Jack. It flops out Jack, Queen, King. I have Ace of Spades. I'm waiting for a 10 of Spades, right? Mm-hmm. And I was looking around, I don't see a sign that says what the progressive is for a royal flush. I didn't want to ask. Hey, what do you get for a royal flush, right? You know what I mean? Right. But I kind of feel that the United States government kind of threw that out there to see what other governments have.
They were fishing.
They're fishing. Yep. And that's one of those ones that's so it's broad enough that you don't have to have any kind of it's not Roswell.
No, I get that. Bodies. I get it. Makes sense.
Where you have bodies, but they're maybe we should work together. Mm-hmm. And it's scary enough that other countries are what is that?
Right.
And then it's questionable enough they're maybe they have it, Yeah. So, however, the bigger picture is holy fuck. My whole life they've been telling us we can't smoke pot and there's no aliens, and now pot's legal. And are there fucking aliens?
And nobody gives a shit.
And nobody gives a shit.
They're like, dude, didn't you hear we can smoke weed now?
It's equal to there's life from other planets.
Because that's how they got the Gen Xers to look away.
I know.
They're like, yeah, but there's weed. And they're like, fuck.
All right, we'll take that.
Right, we'll take the weed.
You mean like in brownies?
And we got those too, buddy.
And we can smoke it. Yeah, go ahead. So I think I think this was like, let's see what's out there. Let's see if other governments want to collaborate with us. And let's open up a discussion publicly that there are people from other planets. And I think the really frightening thing is they've probably been here forever and they're probably responsible for our evolution.
Yep. A lot of people believe that.
Yeah.
All right. You said yours was dark. I think mine's a little darker.
Is it awesome?
Because I think that they did it. They could build it up as a threat.
Yeah.
And I believe they've been trying to I think there was a point where they realized that it could still be going the way like you're saying, where they have like the old dusty ship under a tarp in a garage somewhere and they don't know what to do with it. But it got to a point where it's like, hey, we could use the information of its existence to our advantage.
Yeah.
If we want to increase our defense bill,
Yeah.
Because there's nothing more expensive than shit in space. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're trying to build that budget, you start disclosing this information. Like, yeah, we got this. We don't identify it, but
I mean that makes
it
sense
almost hit like 11 of our pilots.
Because people are like, the moon landing wasn't real.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it is they're talking about the security. Because here's one of the things that the report showed was that there was these incidents were clustered. They used the word clustered in areas where military bases and aerospace technology places were. Mm-hmm. They're close to them. Now it's easy to flip that back the other way. Like, of course, that's where they were all spotted and reported and and censored, because that's where all the sensors and pilots are. So the people that are going to see them are the people with all the radar and and tech to pick up these objects. So it can go either way. It can either be like, you can look at it and say these military bases were close to these sightings, so it was probably military activity. Or you could say that these were sighted around military bases because there was so much military activity.
Yeah.
So it can go. So for me, it can go either way.
Yours is darker. Yours is more like, let's make more money.
It is, and I think that's what's going on. And I think when we were talking about Stephen Greer, I think that's the angle he's on, is that they take, because he said he's briefed presidents several times on information they had and found out how much that they were lied to.
Well, okay.
When he was briefing them.
So to refer back, I mean, this is the first time that we have said a government agency has lied to the American public to get a certain result, like Timothy McVeigh.
Right.
I mean, their whole idea was that they were trying to rally these, right-wing, political groups and trying to get them to do things so they could squash them. And one thing that Elam City or whatever, mm-hmm. they were like, let's blow up the Mora building, and nobody bit. Everybody's like, yeah, we're not doing that. Why would you say that? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, to your point, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because if you think about it too, if you hear the word threat,
the immediate.
You hear the word threat a lot when you're looking through this stuff, and it's not necessarily that they're saying that aliens exist and they're here to kill us all. you know, like, and there's a lot of people who have a big problem. Like, well, my wife would have a big problem with that because she thinks that the more that the civilization advances, the less violent they become. You know, and there's a lot of people
I would agree with that.
That fall on that line. You know, and for me on that point, I can see it, but I can also see it not being true. Like you might even have to be so far advanced past them even to be to the point where you would be nonviolent.
I agree.
So, and it's upbringing,
probably,
you know
probably,
what I mean? So
how
they developed would have a lot to do with how they treated or looked at the rest of the universe. You know, as far as we know, they're coming in to feed the koi fish and getting them fat so that they can harvest them, you know, and that's
exactly.
They're just dropping off some stuff here and there.
Dude, it's exactly right. Yeah.
Any of that stuff's possible. So, but for me, what I'm saying is, exist, don't exist. The government is saying, hey, if we let go of some of this information that we have and we kind of sneak the word threat in here every now and then, and it, like I said, it doesn't have to be this planet killing aliens. This, one of the things that was brought up during this report release was the threat of the fact that these were clustered around these military bases, that airspace issues would be a problem. And they point out that 11 of these 144 were near misses.
Yeah.
The pilot reported near misses. So threat, you know, it's an airspace threat, not necessarily some existential threat from outer space, but threat to safety of proper flight. It could be that simple. So you're like, I need this money for this radar system that'll detect it so our pilots don't accidentally crash into UFOs.
Agreed, because they were very careful to say, like, okay, this exists, but we don't know if it's a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, like, because they didn't want to, like, have panic, right? So they're like, we don't really know.
It's a news outlet tactic where they insinuate something, and then they can't get blamed for slander. It's like, no, we just questioned if this was possible, and it's like that question you proposed took that story in a different direction.
Just to say that, like, you know, either the Chinese or the Russians are 500 to 1,000 years ahead of us. Come on, man. You know they're not.
Right. You can take any story and make it sound nefarious if just by proposing some scenario. So you could be like, so and so started planting a garden. It was like, is he trying to grow illegal drugs?
Right.
And they're like, you know, they could later in the report go, we found out that he wasn't. But your headline already gave everybody the idea that he was. So it's one of those. And I think that's all they have to do is they just kind of tickle. And
they get us all riled up.
They tickle those fear fibers, and next thing you know, you're like, yeah, take my tax money and save the world. And I got a feeling that just the disclosure. I think the reason for the disclosure was they could sell a threat.
I agree. I'm in full agreement with you. It's always to sell a threat. It's like the Patriot Act.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
weapons of mass destruction.
It goes back to the OKC bombing, and it's like, you know, when I talked to my buddy today, and he's like, I listened to the OKC thing, and he's like, is he dead? He's not even dead, is he? Probably not.
Probably not.
He's in Thailand.
Good
somewhere.
chance he's not.
Right. And, you know, like, you're right, man, because, like, fear is the easiest way to get the public to pass any bill. I mean, that literally happened with the Patriot Act.
Everything they always get to know. It's
right. Well, the whole COVID thing, that
terrorism,
all of it,
white supremacy. They jump out at you.
So when it comes to the UAP thing, is this something we always knew and they're just exploiting it now?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think they've known for a long time about a lot of things. Now, there was an old photo that got dug up by Stephen Greer. It was an alien autopsy photo,
right?
But they determined that it was from like the 20s.
Yeah.
So it would have been way before Roswell even.
Right.
So, and that photo, they did all kinds of forensics on that photo because it was a photo of a photo.
Right.
And they proved that the paper was of the right age. They proved that the clothing and all, they had experts from the Smithsonian look at the clothing to make sure that they were period correct in every way. And they had even military experts look at it because there was two guys in the background that weren't dressed in like lab coats and stuff. They were in like the typical, Men in Black type stuff where they were wearing trench coats and glasses and all that stuff and the hats.
Which we're going to do a show on that, by the way.
Yeah.
But, all right, so I'm saying we've always known about this technology, and this was strategically leaked.
Mm-hmm. Whether it's ours, theirs, or
you're
somewhere else.
And you're saying the same thing, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether the technology came from us, from Russia, China, or outer space, we've been sitting on this stuff that's way more advanced than anybody's been told for a long time.
Right, because obviously this is 2004 and it didn't come
right, yeah. They released in 2021, they released that report, and some of those incidents, like you said, the Tic Tac ones all the way back to 2004. So
right.
They've at least been sitting on it for that long. So who knows what else they've been sitting on. I'm sure there's much more juicier things that they can put out, and they probably will over time. If they don't get the results they want, they got to throw out something a little scarier,
Sure, so it makes sense.
No, it's and it's only going to take. They'll start narrowing it down to more specifically these cases where you have these near misses and dangerous maneuvers and things that look threatening. I think they'll start narrowing it down to what they show instead of just like, oh, it's just flying across the ocean and it flew away.
So we can't even say like whether this is probable or believable or fake. This is like, this happened. It's just why it happened.
Yeah, why it happened is a guess, and I think I got a pretty good one.
Me too. Yeah, and I think you're pretty accurate. It's like it's to get money, and that's disheartening.
It is, and I think it like because you know how those spending bills go.
Sure.
Jesus Christ, they're a mile thick, and they got
full of stuff. Yeah.
If you dig through them, you're like, why? What's 11 million to what? And it's like it'll be weird stuff. There's been some weird stuff I've heard in recent bills where it's like one of them we were promoting cricket in some country, like we were giving money to their cricket promotion campaign or some shit like that. I was like, what? And I'm like, that's not what that's for. That's not what that's for.
But that's
$11 million didn't go to no fucking country in the
But we always say that.
Cricket.
We always say that because, like, our economy fuels everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they depend on us to work, and they depend on us to work several jobs and keep everything going. But so that's believable, dude. I don't know.
Yeah, well, our schools are set up to create workers, not rich people.
Agreed.
So, and that's the thing. To a point, you have to be able to accept that.
It's Rick and Morty. It's like
you have to produce these people. You do have to produce people that create and build, and you have to have those people. So there's certain people that they get in life and they go, I'm not going to be part of your
and a lot machine. Of people like I'm,
and then other people like I'm a part of your machine. I get it. I'm willingly a part of your machine, and because I understand it, but I could get out, if I wanted to. I guess it's like one of those. You always feel like you got your freedom, but you really don't.
You really don't. God, it's disheartening, isn't it?
It is.
It is, but like we're as Gen Xers, we expect it.
Yep.
We're not blindsided by it. We're like, that makes total sense.
Right. I'm gonna sleep fine tonight.
You've been fucking us forever. That
Right.
makes total sense. All right, so we're not. I don't even know what to.
I'm saying we solved it. I'm saying we solved.
I think we
why
did.
They disclosed.
I think we did too. I think it's solved.
Yeah.
Shitty
ass dark government.
Shitty ass dark government is right. All right. Well, I'm Anthony.
I'm Brandon.
And this is Everything That's Weird.